The incredible highs, the spectacular lows, the attitudinal influence of a group of degenerates that truly defined an era. I got 2 words for you. Suck it. I'm John Recton with my review WWE on A&E Biography, WWE Legends on D-Generation X. I got 2 more words for you. Too sweet. I got 2 more words for you. Revisionist history. I could come up with more 2 words, as far as like anything to describe DX, and I will say that while DX was definitely influential, they're also one of the most overrated stables in wrestling history, in my personal opinion. I will explain why in this review, and you guys can like them. That's the great thing about wrestling. We can like whatever the fuck we want to like. We can disagree. We can have fun. We can have some fun discourse. I'm just a wrestling fan sharing my opinions. I will say Bret Hart was right about D-Generation X. The NWO was better. And once Shawn Michaels had to go away because of his severe career-ending back injury, and not because he was pilled out of his goddamn mind and almost ready to die, then DX actually got better. DX actually felt like something that was more influential. So there's a lot to talk about here. I do want to say I'm glad they talked about China. It's just a shame that while, yes, they talked about China's rise and they talked about China's fall, they just couldn't come right out and say that part of the reason why was Triple H and Stephanie and hooking up and everything. Yes, China was her own worst enemy and did have her issues that led to her downfall. There's no doubt about that. She was an adult, but at the end of the day, Triple H did break her heart, and there's a lot of shit that they could have talked about. There is the China documentary from the Vice crew, that Vice actually helped, cobble together with her fucking shyster-ass former manager, that goddamn piece of shit. I did a review on that, and actually I really could understand and appreciate what China went through, even though I wasn't her biggest fan. But good fucking grief. While they talked about China, they just couldn't come out and say ultimately why she left the company. Yes, there were other reasons, but still. Anyway, so yeah, one of the most overrated stables ever, my personal opinion. The DX press conference clips, I was up all night. And by the way, fuck David Shoemaker, fuck Bruce Pritchard. Both their parents should be brought up on capital criminal charges for bringing them into this world. So, the 2 words for you, and all the clips and the downfalls and all the shit that they went through, and that the stable was a necessary evolution in our business. De-evolution, as it were, because it is a mystery. So, WWE in the early to mid-90s was very cartoonish. It was. While there were some great talents, they wouldn't know what to do with a lot of great talents. Now, that's the thing. See, when it came to like the Raw era, started in early January of 1993 and even into 95, yes, there was TL Hopper, there was the Goon, there was, Duke the Dumpster Droese, there were a lot of people. Aldo Montoya's got the jock on the wrong part of his body. There was a lot of that stuff, but there was also 1-2-3 Kid versus Bret in one of the best matches in Raw history. July 11, 1994, it still sticks out in my mind. It's one of the best pure athletic matches that WWE had put on at that time, especially on TV. It was really good shit. There was some great wrestling, and Shawn was a big reason why there was a lot of great wrestling, because Shawn, for better or worse, and boy, there was a lot of the worse when it came to him, he could perform in the ring. He could do a lot of great shit. And I'm sure still could. Of course, he had to ruin his fucking retirement for about $18 billion from the Saudi government, but whatever. A lot of people have gone over and done that. But boy, that Crown Jewel 2018 match is something that we should never talk about. So DX shook it all up. It was a brainchild of Triple H and Shawn. This spends a lot of time on Triple H and Shawn's friendship, which was talked about in the Shawn Michaels biography. Go back and check out my review of that. Triple H was born in 1969. Nice. Seeing wrestling, sitting on his dad's lap. Chief Jay Strongbow, we see footage of him in WWF and Mid-Atlantic Wrestling, Jim Crockett Promotions. We then see, started lifting at age 14. Ted Arcani, I think it's Arcani. Big old muscle-bound guy, worked in World Class and a few other places. Tried to encourage him, or discourage him from joining the world of wrestling. Killer Kowalski trained him. He was in WCW, Triple H was, as Terra Rising for a year. His lone pay-per-view match was putting over Alex Wright on the Starrcade 1994 card. It was main evented, by the way, by Hulk Hogan versus Brutus the Barber Beefcake, a.k.a. The Butcher. He has butchered the friendship. Brutus fucking Beefcake got a goddamn Starrcade main event. That right there is good enough reason for WCW to have gone out of fucking business. So anyway, Bruce Pritchard's a moron. He's a goddamn liar. Because he sure loves to spin all this stuff as far as Vince. Now, I'm not saying that Bruce Pritchard is the ultimate goddamn liar. I will just say that as far as a lot of the shit that he tends to slide, just let slide, yeah, he might be the ultimate liar. He always tried to defend the Ultimate Warrior or whatever. By the way, fuck the Ultimate Warrior. I'm glad he's dead. Sean's early days, etc. Jannetty, I noted, looks like an old woman that's been working at a dive bar for the last 40 years. And then they go right to the heel turn. Jannetty tried to dive through the window to escape. Did you see that? What an act of cowardice. Brett talked about Sean's heel run, how Sean was a self-described asshole, a screaming asshole. AKA many people after pizza or taco night, but I digress. Triple H was a designated driver. He was the one with no bad habits, except Paul taking his way into the company. But hey, it is what it is. Made a whole lot of money because of it. The Click, the origination of the Too Sweet signal, that the Bullet Club ripped off badly, because the Bullet Club's a fucking ripoff of better stables that actually drew money. Bullet Club may be selling a good amount of t-shirts for their time. They ain't like the NWO. The Bullet Club ain't positive for wrestling. And the NWO eventually became the Poison Pill. The NWO also ran out after about 3.5 years. Not 9 to 10. So Vince, so they told Vince that something's got to change. The Click's like, something's got to change. We got to do this. They had all this influence, all this backstage stroke. They would get people's pushes canceled. They won, Diesel and Shawn won the tag titles and then didn't defend them and just dropped them. Shawn would hold titles and then not actually drop them in a proper way. He, got beat up by a bunch of Marines. It was actually one Marine, and then he wore that jacket that even Fatu wouldn't want to make a difference in and gave up the title. And all this stuff's going on. Diesel, they gloss over Diesel being the WWF champion at the time for almost a year, and it not working, not because he was the worst, just because they didn't present him properly. And then Bruce talks about WCW going after the established stars and stuff like that. Well, yeah, because Vince had done the fucking same in 82, especially when he got control of the company. 82, 83, 84. When he was starting his national expansion in like 83, with Jimmy Snuka's goddamn top star. By the way, fuck Jimmy Snuka. I'm glad he's dead as well. And then just over a decade later actually, because Hogan left, Savage left, Duggan left. They were people that had made a big impact in WWE and had been a big deal. I mean, and Duggan was one of the most over guys, still is. I'm glad that he beat cancer. Good for him. I believe it was his second or third cancer diagnosis, and he beat it again. Thank fuck. Cancer's a goddamn bitch. But too many people left. Yes, there were people that would go from WCW to WWE. Mark Marrow went there in 1996, but we go to it's not like Vince is, Vince was so put upon because people left him or whatever. How dare I made you all this money, pal, and you're giving up on me? Ha ha ha. He wasn't willing to give guaranteed contracts. Unlike what he gave to Mark Marrow when he gave him $350,000 a year for like 3 years or whatever the fuck it was, or maybe it was more years than that. Now, nothing against Mark Marrow. I'm using that as an example because he gave Steve Austin and Mick Foley the traditional, small contract, 10 dates, $150, that old opportunity thing. Give you an opportunity, pal. But they didn't give guaranteed contracts to other people. And then the curtain call, Madison Square Garden. Now, I always find that they show the footage, the camera gets snuck in. They talk about how Hall was leaving, Nash was leaving, Sean Waltman, a.k.a. 123 Kid, then Six, and then X-Pac later. He was in rehab at the time. They talk about that in a little bit, but Hall and Nash were leaving. Triple H was the fall guy because Sean was the WWF champion at the time. And it broke kayfabe. It pissed everybody off. It was in the hallowed halls of Madison Square Garden. It was terrible. It was shitting all over Vince's business. Ignoring the fact that Vince McMahon told people to get out of the whole thing with the athletic commissions and to pay state taxes in like some areas. He was saying, it's just sports entertainment. We're not sports. We're not like that other wrestling. We're sports entertainment. We're in the entertainment business, pal. He'd been telling people for years that it was ridiculous. Yes, okay, I'm not saying the curtain call necessarily was the best thing. It was them slapping what was left of kayfabe in the face. Yes, they were celebrating with their friend. Had that footage not leaked out, guess what? Wouldn't be talking about it, and Triple H wouldn't have been punished. It might have made the dirt sheets for whatever those were at the time, but the fact that the footage got leaked out, ooh, that's not good. And fans were not happy, apparently. Well, Pat Patterson and others weren't happy, but Pat Patterson was upset because the Ring Boys refused his advances that night. And just Vince saying, oh, wait, they shit on my business. You've been shitting on wrestling for a while, Vince. Even though you had some great talents at that time. Hell, he thought pushing Ahmed Johnson at that point was a good idea. We saw how well that worked out. So anyway, Triple H paid dearly. No King of the Ring 1996 thing, and he was buried and buried and buried and buried and buried, just beaten into powder, beaten by everybody. That was the 19th of May, 1996. He won the Intercontinental Championship on, I believe it was the 21st of October, 1996. 21st or 28th, I forget exactly when. It's one of those two. 5 months. 5 months of burial. And I guarantee you that Shawn basically was like, hey, Vince, let's stop this or whatever. He probably has stopped somewhere around, I'd say September, because suddenly Triple H gets, he gets a valet, which I believe was Sable at the time. The famous sign or whatever, Sable can't wrestle, but I'd like to see her box. That was kind of funny for some reason. But he also got Mr. Hughes as a heavy. They skipped over all that, though, because they had to bring up China. But just the whole point is, I'll get China here in a second. Oh, Triple H was buried. He was buried horribly, and he won the IC title like 5 months later. It wasn't that much of a burial, and he held it for just under 4 months. Lost it on the Thursday, Raw Thursday, where Shawn lost his smile. Because he didn't want to drop the title, because he was a prick and a pillhead. And he's admitted since, but China was brought up. Oh, that's my heavy. That's going to be the heavy. China, as far as the look, the stature, worked. Her ragdoll Terry Reynolds, who was willing to do anything for the business, put up with so much goddamn shit. Poor Terry. That whole plane ride from hell and Brock, harassing her. Harassing is about the best way I can put it. Poor Terry Reynolds. But, then they get comments from China's mom about how they've glossed over quite a bit of this because it's covered in that China documentary biography thing. That she had drug issues around age 15. She was kicked out. She went to live with her dad. Her dad, I believe, that stabbed her mother when she was younger. But China decided, I'm going to go live with my dad. Not great. So, Shawn's drug issues took hold, and he lost his smile. He didn't want to put over Vader. He worked with Sid. Sid beat him. It was great to see that girl just fucking crying in Madison Square Garden. That was great. Nothing against that particular person. It was just great to see the Shawn Michaels fans lose it and have tears streaming down their face because their hero lost the championship. They didn't want to back a Royal Rumble. And yes, he no doubt had injuries. Wrestling is not fucking easy. There are very few people that can do it great. There are very few people that can handle it. They can handle the travel and the stress and the fact that, taking all those bumps in those goddamn rings. However the rings are. Whatever company they're from. But Shawn didn't want to drop the title to Bret. That's what he didn't want to fucking do it, so he came up with a reason to not do it. Because he won the title from Bret. They could have done more business, but Shawn, again, and he admits, he's a pillhead, he was what he was, but he wanted to get fired and go to WCW. I guarantee you that if Shawn had gone to WCW, Shawn Michaels would have been dead by 2000. And I'm not wishing that. I'm just saying with how WCW let people run wild, they let Scott Hall run wild. They did get rid of Six, aka X-Pac. He went to rehab and I think came back within not quite 2 years. It was just under 2 years. Because he debuted in August or September of 1996? So he wasn't even in WCW for more than 2 years, but Shawn would have been dead by 2000. He might have met his wife sooner, but if he was so beat up, good God, working in WCW, I mean, he could have had some great, we could have seen Shawn versus Sting, we could have seen Shawn versus DDP, we could have seen Shawn versus Bret there, because guess what, Bret would have ended up going to WCW, or maybe Vince would have been forced to keep Bret and honor the contract that he gave him But he couldn't pay. I can't pay you, pal. I gotta give Mike Tyson all this money. Ha ha ha. So he was off TV for all 6 weeks with his career-ending knee injury. And then, yes, eventually he would come back. He would do his stuff. WWE was challenged by another company for the first time, ignoring Jim Crockett Promotions, going neck and neck with them in some markets and everything. Yes, WCW, as far as Turner owning it, they had more money and he had more influence, and he was able to just, Bischoff was able to spend money like a drunken sailor, in the words of many, even though Bischoff did cut costs initially and got WCW profitable in, I believe, late 95, and they were rolling in 96, despite the Dungeon of Doom and the Alliance and Hulkamania and the Yeti in October of 1995. They were rolling. And then they got all Nash, and they got all that. Triple H and Shawn got frustrated, and they did what they want. They were going to become the culture shock crew. They were going to shock the system. At them core, baby. And then Brett basically said it was like the inmates around the asylum. They Shawn told Triple H to use that anger to push forward. The suck it moment. And then Brett was right about DX, specifically Shawn. Yes, they made up sins, but I stand by what I said. Rick Rude's role was totally glossed over. Yes, he was a heavy and he wasn't really there for that long, but he was there for enough time. And then left after the Montreal Screwjob. And showing up on a taped Raw and on a live Nitro. Good on Rick Rude. Rest in peace, Rick Rude. And Shawn does put over how Chyna was, very much somebody that he could rely on. She helped a lot, and she helped him when he wasn't in a great place mentally or physically, and how this all became must-see TV because of DX. Shawn Michaels and Triple H should get some credit for it, but Steve Austin was the main catalyst. Yes, DX was a big reason. People were doing the Suck It thing. People had the glow sticks. People had all the other stuff. The DX shirts were all over. I used to have a couple myself. A couple of the originals. They since got lost to time because they got all worn out and everything. But nevertheless, it's not like DX was the most influential thing ever. NWO was better. So, the USA Network sent a memo. DX basically mocked it with the whole, I did not sleep with that young intern. I was up all night. USA loved it, and this whole thing took off. The Mike Tyson thing, mentioning Mike Tyson being such an influencer, such a tremendous boxer and all that, and bite your ear, beat you up, eat your children, and abuse Robin Givens and other women. Just ignore that. Let's just say, man, Tyson and Austin must have been able to trade stories about how they abused women. Don't get me wrong, Mike Tyson, hell of a goddamn boxer. Hell of a fucking boxer. Austin, one of the biggest box office draws of all time. Can't fucking ignore that shit. Can't fucking ignore it. This isn't a cancel culture thing. This is an accountability thing. If we're gonna knock other people for less, we need to knock the best for what they did, off camera. So then, Shawn's issues took hold. Dropping the title to Austin. The Austin era has begun. Could Triple H take over? X-Pac showed back up. That's when DX really took off. I'm not saying that Shawn and Triple H as DX with Chyna there, and even Rude to an extent, wasn't what was bad at all. Chyna definitely helped. Once X-Pac showed up and the New Age Outlaws showed up, they had already been together for a bit. Once they all came together right now over me, it was actually gross. They actually took off as a group. That was a better incarnation. You had people that were still on tons of shit, but you had Triple H as the leader. That helped Triple H. And it was kind of cool how they tell origin stories about people. They didn't cover anything about the 1, 2, 3 Killer Lightning Kid. I wish they had. So Billy, he talked about how he was a cowboy on a steel horse he rode, and he was wanted, dead, or, well, that doesn't really work at all, but he got a rodeo scholarship and then got into wrestling because of Ron and Don Harris, aka the Aryan brothers. You don't believe me? Wonder why they cover their legs. They have swastika tattoos because they're fucking pieces of shit. So anyway, Road Dogg. So let's just say right now that while Road Dogg had the gift of gab, Road Dogg was also the least of the Armstrong clan. And had Bullet Bob actually pulled out that night, we wouldn't have to worry about Road Dogg. I think Billy Gunn would have been just fine. I mean, sure, he wasn't the best talker, but he was a much better wrestler. Road Dogg, if he didn't have his nose planted so firmly up Trump's ass and wasn't such a goddamn anti-Black Lives Matter and any kind of anti-movement bullshit, if he wasn't a goddamn idiot that had to get saved because he did so many goddamn drugs that would have killed about a herd of elephants, if he actually was a halfway decent human being, but getting saved doesn't make you a goddamn good human being, then maybe I would actually feel bad for Road Dogg, but I don't. See, if we could bring... See, I wish he had taken Brad's place, because then Brad, who was actually good for wrestling, would be here, and Road Dogg wouldn't be, and his wife and children would be better off. Because Road Dogg's a goddamn idiot. No, yeah, okay, everybody goes through bad shit, everybody does their bad stuff. Well, guess what? Road Dogg's a piece of shit, and so's anybody that wants to still support Trump like that. That's me on my soapbox. If you don't fucking like it, I don't fucking care. There's escapism. Wrestling is escapism. But to pretend like wrestling isn't political and there aren't people that think the same way Brian James thinks, yeah, Brian, you're a goddamn idiot. You're an embarrassment to the name Brian. There are plenty of good people named Brian. Brian Boitano, what would he do? I hope he'd kick your ass or 2 times. But anyway, he appropriated black culture, by the way, to... the cornrows and everything and all that, and tried to do that stuff basically because he couldn't talk on his own, because he was a singing cowboy. They skipped over the Jeff Jarrett stuff, and they talked about all the, all the shit that he did, and sure, he could talk, and that was it. If he couldn't talk, he wouldn't have ever made it in wrestling. He did serve in the military, and for the fact that he did that, he has my respect. Wish he'd been left in a goddamn sand dune, because it's where his fucking ass belongs. Just somebody with his mindset, and I don't really fucking care. I don't fucking care. I respect the military. I don't respect Brian James. Nobody should. Why would anybody respect him? Nobody should like him. His kids should abandon him. His wife should abandon him. He should die alone, afraid. Anyway, so yeah. The Smoking Guns actually were a pretty goddamn good tag team. In fact, I love the Smoking Guns. I thought to wrestle in jeans, whether they were, actual jeans or like some kind of, jean-looking material, whatever. It's pretty goddamn impressive to be able to wrestle in jeans. They aren't exactly the most mobile type gear, I guess, or, clothing, I guess, really is the best way you could say it. So they're put together as a team. They were added a second incarnation of DX. Oh, you didn't know. Your ass better call somebody. Brian tried calling somebody after he got fired by WWE. Tried calling WCW, ignoring the fact WCW was being bought out. So, the invasion of WCW, they're at the Scope. Had Bischoff known at the time, he said he would have let them in because it would have been a great television. And there are rumors that Nash and Hall were knocking on the door wanting to be let out, or have them let in. Or the Ming was there and he was going to beat them all up. In about 5-on-1, it was about fucking even, in all honesty. And Bischoff... Yeah, Bischoff wishes he had done it. It would have been kind of cool. Of course, Bischoff then countered by challenging Vince McMahon at, was it Slamboree 1998? I think it was Slamboree. And then the ratings took off. The ratings are already ticking upwards anyway, Bruce, you goddamn idiot. WWE had already turned the tide coming out of WrestleMania 14. Austin and McMahon had won, or gotten the ratings victory for the first time in nearly 2 years. And sure... DX was a reason why ratings took off. They weren't the only fucking reason. Hell, Sable got big ratings for exposing whatever she called a goddamn, attractive body at the time. She didn't deserve to be harassed, though, and if all this stuff about Vince is true, and Vince ended up harassing her, no wonder she left. But anyway, that's another story for another day. The crotch chop, suck it, break it down. Yeah, I can't even do that theme. And then they skipped over the Nation of Domination parody. I wonder why. Waltman's talked about how he didn't want, he regrets doing that and everything. But of course, Road Dogg had to mock a black guy, because that's what he fucking does, because he's a goddamn piece of shit and the worst of the Armstrong clan. And have I mentioned that Bullet Bob should have pulled out that night? So anyway, Road Dogg's downward spiral, his fault. ultimately it does come down to it being people's fault or their own fault. Triple H, he wanted to do stuff on his own. He wanted to go down the only road he'd ever known. And the split at Mania 15, but they would rejoin in late 99 and into some of 2000 until people started, not doing so well and leaving. Triple H became the best, the best heel, or one of the best heels of all time. Maybe of that generation. Reign of Terror and all that other bullshit. No, I'm not going to say one of the best heels. I'm not. His matches with Rock, his matches with Austin, his matches with Foley. Those three feuds, fucking tremendous. Especially the Rock and Foley feuds. Those are great. One of the best heels of all time? No. Not to me. To you, that's fine. So, it lasted less than 2 years. Chyna took off. She, won the IC title from Jeff Jarrett, who got about $300,000 because they let his contract lapse because somebody was asleep at the goddamn wheel, probably JR. And then JR even said that Chyna wanted more money. She wanted to be paid like Stone Cold. Chyna was massively influential. She didn't deserve to be paid the same as Stone Cold. Nobody, maybe besides Rock, deserved to be paid as much as Stone Cold. Now, could Chyna have worked with the men? Sure. Men are strong enough to put her in places and put her in spots and everything. They didn't have a deep women's division. She wanted to be paid the same as Stone Cold. That's where, no. But they did tend to skip over the fact that, oh yeah, Triple H and her were dating, and then Triple H and Stephanie were together, and that broke Chyna's heart. So, me thinks that maybe WWE needs to stop with the revisionist history. And Road Dogg got off the drugs and got religion. So he traded one bullshit addiction for another bullshit addiction. If religion saves you, that's fine. Religion is bullshit, by the way, especially with the way some people use it. So, Billy, he blew his shoulder out against the Dudleys with the Road Dogg. And then they just gloss over the fact that he was released by the company. Unless he was released very, very briefly in 2000, he wasn't released until late 2004. 4 fucking years. Just skip over everything. I mean, he was the one Billy Gunn. He teamed up with Big Show called Shoguns. He teamed up with teamed up with Chuck Palumbo. And he had a decent proposal match with Jamie Noble, where Nitti and Tori got involved. Was it Nitti and Tori? Probably. It was one of those. It was one of those. It was weird. Vengeance 2003, I believe that happened. And then the Road Dogg goes to Nitro and ends up losing, and ends up by wanting to get a job, ends up finding out, oh wait, WWE bought the goddamn company. Had he watched the TV in 2001, he would have known it was going down. Hell, you watched WCW TV in 2000, you would have known that company was going down. It was not pretty. I relived that entire last year. The TNA run. The Voodoo Kin Mafia. Brian James went there in 2002. Oh yeah. Like to use a certain gay slur towards a lot of wrestlers. We had the 3 Live Crew. More stuff with him working with Truth, who was a better worker and a better person than he could ever hope to be. Billy in 2005. He was Kip James. First he was the Outlaw. Man, they really liked to fly close to the sun like Icarus, didn't they? Yeah, the Voodoo Kin Mafia, the indie scene. Voodoo Kin Mafia was not all that great. I did like Roxy Laveau, though. I did like her. So, Waltman spiraled out of control. He went to Mexico, tried to hang himself in Mexico. Kevin Nash helped him. He was in the hospital for a few days. Left his shit in Mexico, never went back. Okay. He got clean. Good on Waltman. He's been open and honest about it. Road Dogg got his job back, was a writer for SmackDown. That explains why SmackDown's writing was absolute shit, because Road Dogg doesn't know shit about wrestling. Shawn got saved. Shawn's still the same asshole, he's just better because he got saved by God. And then they skipped over the 2006, early 2010 runs. Straight to Raw 1000. No Chyna because she was living in Japan happily. Came back to LA. And then they just skipped right to her death, her legacy. How Black Widow and all these other Marvel movies and all this stuff was influenced by Chyna. I don't know if Chyna necessarily influenced it. Chyna would have, had she lived, had she had her head on straight, been able to get clean, her having supporting roles in Marvel movies would have been cool to see. And then DX in the Hall of Fame. And they're all happy. And all married and everything. Just wish that Brian wasn't here, because Brad should be here. Bullet Bob should still be here. They were good for wrestling. Brian James wasn't and never will be. And I will cheer when he's no longer here. So yeah, DX though, pretty influential, weren't they? Boy, that turned into a goddamn straight up evisceration of Brian James, the piece of shit that he is. I hope his children grow up to be better people than he is, but then again, if they just develop more than one working brain cell, they won't have to, aim much higher than that. Agree, disagree what I said? Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.